Inga mana, inga reo, inga karangatanga maha, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa. No mai haere mai ki te manatu mō te taio. Kia ora koutou and welcome. Ko Rachel Ward toko ingoa. I'm the team leader of the transition team at the Ministry for the Environment, and I'm part of the team that's responsible for delivering New Zealand's first emissions reduction plan, also known as the ERP. Right now, we are still developing the ERP, and we're asking Māori to give us your input and help us complete the plan. When finalised, the ERP will include policies and strategies to help meet our emissions reduction targets and ways to mitigate the impacts that reducing emissions will have on people, along with targeted policies for specific sectors. You might have already seen our video explaining the ERP generally. This video is a high-level resource to help explain how you can help us to ensure our transition to the low emissions economy is an equitable one. We are raising these questions now to help frame our further engagement. Māori are tangata whenua, and upholding their role as both kaitiaki and rangatira is vital to our journey towards an inclusive, productive and sustainable economy. The Climate Change Response Act recognises government's responsibility to give effect to the principles of te tiriti o Waitangi in a number of ways. Firstly, through requiring the Climate Change Commission members to have skills and experience relevant to te tiriti, and asking iwi and Māori representatives for member nominations. This ensures a strong mandated Māori voice is heard in the Commission's advice. Secondly, through requiring a strategy to mitigate impacts of the transition on Māori. And thirdly, through consulting Māori on our plan. The first emissions reduction plan will respond to the recommendations from the Climate Change Commission regarding te tiriti and Māori. We want to hear from Māori about their thoughts on the recommendations and our proposed response. The Commission's advice recommends that our transition pathway will be created in partnership with Māori. We want to hear from Māori which models of partnership will work best and what strategic areas are a priority. We want to support Māori to decide their own priorities and pathways for the transition. We're consulting on what a Māori-led transition should look like and how best to implement it. The Commission recommends that as a first step, the government should support iwi and hapu and other Māori collectives to develop emissions profiles. We'd like to better understand how a profile could benefit Māori and what kinds of information would help Māori to understand and manage emissions and removals, particularly for groups and organisations that are not landowners or whose rohe is urbanised. We're at a critical moment in time. Transitioning to a low emissions and climate resilient future provides an opportunity for Aotearoa to transform our economy, bring long-term benefits, and address other long-standing challenges that we face, such as loss of biodiversity and housing. The emissions reduction plan will enhance the well-being of our people and regional economies while fostering industry, innovation and investment and supporting efforts to adapt to the impacts of climate change. The plan will be informed by a coherent strategy and the right mix of actions, including emissions pricing, well-targeted regulation, tailored sectoral policies, and direct public and private investment. Our economy and society will look very different in 2050, and the changes needed to reach our targets will affect some communities, regions, and households more than others. However, the transition will also bring opportunities. New industries and job opportunities are likely to emerge in areas such as the circular and bioeconomy. For households, measures to reduce energy consumption can have significant health benefits. To deliver an equitable transition, a range of interventions will be needed. We see these sitting across 4 areas: reducing risks for firms and households, promoting business and job opportunities, supporting workers, households and communities through the transition, and monitoring the impacts and responding as they emerge. The Climate Change Commission proposed developing an equitable transition strategy. We agree that this is an important step and are interested in your feedback on the objectives proposed by the Commission. We want to understand the most effective and useful ways to work with Māori organisations. This will be an ongoing process, and we see accountability to Māori as a central po. Through our online kōrero or your response to the discussion document, we would also love to hear your perspectives on some broader issues, such as how can government further support households, particularly low-income households, to reduce their emissions footprint? How can government further support workers at threat of displacement to develop new skills and find good jobs with minimal disruption? What additional resources, tools, and information are needed to support community transition planning? And how could the uptake of low emissions business models and production methods be best encouraged? We see the growth and support for Māori-owned businesses as a key feature of the transition. This in turn is likely to support improved Māori employment outcomes. We want to hear what issues Māori businesses are facing due to climate change, both opportunities and risks. We also want to hear ideas for how government can support Māori businesses to address those risks and seize opportunities. This concludes today's presentation. I hope you found it informative. Please don't forget to keep an eye out for pānui about online events. We would love to see you there for a more in-depth kōrero about this important kōpapa. Ka kite anō.